Hey everybody, welcome. Happy to have you back for another webinar. This webinar's focus is all about working with PDFs. Really, we think about it working with paper documents. We'll look at some tips and tricks, some tools that you could use, as well as some strategies to make sure that those print materials you have are accessible to all your students. So I'm happy you're here. Hope you're enjoying this series of webinars. Again, if this is the first one that you've stumbled across, welcome. This is me. My name is Mike Murata. I am an AT specialist. I live in New Jersey, have my own consulting company, do a lot of work locally for schools and organizations, as well as travel around the country, working with individuals to help integrate technology into successful solutions for people with disabilities. So as I mentioned, this is a series of webinars. They are a series of 10. This is webinar number 7. But like I said, you didn't have to come to this one in order. You could come to it in any way you wanted to. This numbering system mostly just helps me organize my thoughts and organize the webinars as I keep rolling forward. But as you go through, if you haven't visited the Google site yet, this is something that I would really encourage that you go to if you want to check out where all the webinars live. So this is at sites.google.com/view/NHATI webinars. On that page, you will see a little of everything. So let's go there, give you a sense. So here's the Google site. When you get there, again, there's the web address right in the middle of the page in that blue bar, which is sites.google.com/view/NHATI webinars. Once you're here, look along the top right of the page, and you'll see a drop-down that says Webinar Series, and then each of the webinars in this series of 10 has its own page. And so you can go and hunt down the topic that you're interested in. I'll take us to the page for today's, what we're talking about right now. So you'll get the webinar, the short little blurb that tells you what we're going to cover, the things that we're going to look at. As you roll down the page, you will have the recording of the webinar. So basically in this big picture which says coming soon as I'm done talking to you this afternoon, that webinar will drop up there. So the webinar recording will be there. Underneath it, underneath each of the webinars, I've set this up in a way that each of the pages has its own Google Doc that we're all able to see and edit. So if you have comments or questions or ideas or anything at all that you want to add to the conversation, drop it in here. This is a document that's wide open, and I would love for you to fill this out. So I have a spot for participants. I like to know who's in the group, so share your info. It's a great way for us to connect with each other. So share your contact info so we can chat. I gave you some resources to start us off. Not a lot, but some. Like anything else, a couple webinars, a couple resources for this webinar that can keep you moving forward. And then finally underneath it, we have a spot for group notes. Go in there, add anything you want in there. This is the way that we can communicate during this webinar time, because really everybody's watching these webinars at a different moment. So there's no way for us to talk in real time during this kind of viewing stage because of the fact that these are asynchronous and people will watch them whenever they have a chance. They'll watch them out of order. They'll watch the ones that interest them first. Whatever it is, that's the whole beauty of this series, is you can do it however you want. But this will give us an opportunity through that Google Doc to connect with each other, to share ideas, and to continue the discussion. Now, to further continue the discussion in more of a real-time, synchronous way, we will be hosting what we're calling AT Tool Time Chats. These will happen on Thursday afternoons. They're going to happen through Zoom. Zoom is the video platform we'll use. Zoom is what I'm using right now to record this with you. But when we get to these tool time discussions, this will be a live webinar. You'll be able to connect at that designated time. So the designated time for this topic is Thursday, February 18th, 2018 at 3 p.m. So you have plenty of time to put this in your calendar, that's for sure. But put that in your calendar, and what we'll do is we'll get together on that afternoon and we'll talk about things, whatever it is you want to talk about. I'll share some additional resources. I'll show you some more things we can look at. Whatever comments had been dropped in the Google Doc, we can review those. We can talk a little bit further about those. We can explore some of the tools that people might mention in that. So it gives us an opportunity to build on this recording, and then also to build on the Google Doc where we have this kind of sharing, this asynchronous sharing. This will give us an opportunity to get together and actually talk and have a nice deep conversation about this topic. So please make sure you put that date in your calendar. That's February 18th, 2018 at 3, and we'll get together and we'll talk about this topic, this idea of interacting with PDFs or print materials and making them accessible for someone. All right, so with that, all of that out of the way, that little preamble stuff, let's jump into it. We'll start talking about the idea of what this webinar focuses on. And it focuses on paper. No, it doesn't focus on paper. But when we think about the idea of our classrooms and the experiences that we have in our rooms and the issues that sometimes face our students, some of those issues they have can be traced back to paper. If paper is not an accessible medium for those students to perform their work, they are stuck. And so how do we do that? And it's a tricky topic, and going paperless, and our goal is to get paperless this year. That's great. I think that's awesome. If you haven't listened to any of the webinars, you don't know this about me, but anybody who has knows I love tech. I'm all for it. Getting more tech in the room, that's great. What is the tech doing? Is it doing what you need it to do? And so there are always instances where paper rears its head. I was going to say rears its ugly head, but not all paper is ugly. But paper rears its head, and our students have to address it, and they have to interact with it in some way. And how do we make sure that we have tools in place in all this technology we might have in our rooms, which again is great. We have lots of technology, but do we have the tools available so that the student can navigate this paper with the technology? And within that same process, we still have to remember the idea of the set framework, making sure that I understand the student and their abilities, understanding the environment, understanding the tasks. That's critical. And then, of course, talking about the tools. The tools, when we think about this, is about how can I convert this paper document to a digital document that is accessible and meets my students' needs. And so the first thing I always like to say to people with regards to this is, what do you need to do with this PDF? What is it that your student has to accomplish? What are you trying to address? Is it simply getting an electronic version of a piece of paper? That's at the core of what we're doing with all these tools. But then that next step and your next question should be, why? Why do I need this paper digital? What do I need to accomplish with it? Does my student need to type on it to answer questions? Does my student need to read it on a device? Does my student need to read it with text-to-speech support? Does my student need to annotate it and then extract that information to be able to do something else? So there is that next step beyond getting access to a print today, but it goes deeper than that in our discussion of, I need to know what I'm going to do with it once it is digital. Because that will impact the tools I can use that my tool must have in order to be successful. So we need to have that understanding right away, because as we go through this, and I show shots of some other tools, I have a video clip of something, we'll look at all these tools in action, but each of them does a little different thing, and not all of these tools will address all the needs that could come up that I mentioned before. That idea of text-to-speech, annotating, printing on top of it. Those are different features, and not each of these tools has each of those features. So keep that in mind. We need to take a step back from this, and we should always do this when we think about technology. Let's take a step back from it and say, what do I really need? That's where we go back into that set framework and really kind of dig down into that idea of, here's exactly what I need in order for my student to be successful or to have the best opportunity to be successful. And so we'll start our trip through documents in this idea of how do we convert paper documents to some type of digital file and then have that available for the student. So the first thing I would say is, does your school have a copier that allows you to scan documents? Many of them have this feature now. Many of our copiers in our schools have a scanning the scanned image to most times anyone on your network. So you might be able to quickly take a paper document, scan it from the copy machine, and email it directly to the student. That is a nice, fast way to give access to electronic documents in. So the tool was relatively easy. It lives in our copier, most likely. Great, I can get it digitally. The strategy has to come in is, how does the student organize that information and, more importantly, store those files you send them? And this becomes a conversation of, what is the method you use in your school or organization? Many of our schools have now gone to Google, so you use Google Drive. Well, if that's the case, then the scanned document from your copy machine shows up in the student's Gmail. The student clicks that document directly from their mail and saves it to their Google Drive. So that's a good thing. It's easy in a sense that the infrastructure to do that is already there. The trick comes in the process and the training being put in place to make sure that student is comfortable knowing how to do that. Knowing how to save files in their Google Drive, knowing how to not only save them in their drive, but organize those files so they can actually find them at some point. The other thing is, when we send files to our drive from the copy machine, what does the copy machine call that file? So what's the file name? And then we need to develop a strategy with our students to have them quickly rename documents so they understand what these documents are. So we have to have naming conventions, organizational strategies. We have to have a plan. Otherwise, we haven't provided any additional support than just getting something electronically to a student. There's no strategy to actually help them be successful. So think about that. And I mentioned just Google Drive there, but really it could be using OneDrive or using a tool like Evernote to organize your information. Whatever it is, these tools have to have some kind of file structure, have to have some kind of organizational structure. So we need to have that in place. We need to make sure that the thought process has been put in place and the training has been given to our student so that when these files start showing up from the copy machine, the student knows what to do with them and then can actually perform the work we want them to do with that file. So we have to make sure that that plan is in place. Again, that plan is less about the tech and more about the implementation. It's more about a strategy and teaching someone the process. Then when we think about how our files get to our students, then we start looking at, can the students do something with these files? And so maybe that comes up from tools like Chrome extensions that are basically PDF viewers. And so I have two examples here. I'll jump off and actually show you one in a second. I'll show you this one. Kami is one of them, and K-A-M-I. That is a tool that it connects to your Google Drive and allows you to open and manipulate PDF documents. And so what we end up with is documents opening out of our Google Drive. And so here's an example. Here's Kami. And here's a document that I opened. So I had gone to my Google Drive. All right, I'm going to show you my Google Drive against my better judgment, but here we go. So there's my Google Drive. I did a search within my drive for PDFs. So it just opened up any PDF that I had so I could see where they were. When you find a PDF that you want to do something with, if you have multiple tools that will open it, which I do, what I end up doing is right-clicking with my mouse and then telling the computer that I want to open a PDF with a certain tool. And so what you'll see is when my computer eventually works itself out, there you go. I have a bunch of different tools within my Google Drive that will allow me to open up PDFs. So I had selected Kami out of this drop-down menu and received the document. There's the PDF. This PDF is basically slides from a Google slide presentation, but it's in a PDF form. But now I have the ability through all of the markup tools on the left-hand side to perform all kinds of tasks in here. Things like entering in text if we have to add text into a document. So if my student has a PDF and they need to now type over it, we can do that using this tool. And it gives us the ability to do that. It gives us that functionality to type directly on the PDF. I'm going to remove everything I put on this just so as you watch me do it, because this is a document I share with other people. And so I don't want to impact their documents with my stuff. Keep that in mind as well. If this is a shared document in your Google Drive, your students should have their own copy of it in order to make all their markups on it and do whatever it is they're going to do. The other thing you can do on these documents, if we just have a second of, I can mark them up. So again, I have this ability to highlight, type on it, draw on it, whatever it is that I need my student to do, they can do on this document using Kami. So it is basically a viewer and a tool that allows you to mark up and annotate PDFs that end up in your drive. So that's one version of it, of a tool. Another one that people use, and these two tools have very similar functions. So if you're not quite seeing what you want in something like a Kami, this is one called Doc Hub, which allows you to do the same thing. And the picture on the screen is showing you a math worksheet that someone dropped into a Google Drive, and now the student is able to write their answers on the worksheet, but using the computer to do that. So they could either type it, or in this case, they're handwriting it, whatever it might be. So looking at different ways to mark up documents using these extensions that live in your Google Drive. So those are a couple examples of allowing you to manipulate PDFs once they arrive in your drive. So again, thinking about how you're going to get them there is one piece, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So we showed that really quick and dirty way, which is use your copy machine, get them into your Google Drive, and then manipulate them however you might need it. So that's one way, using these extensions. The other thing that I wanted to show you, this is another extension that's free and performs its job pretty well, actually. Always pleasantly surprised how this extension works. This is called Copyfish OCR, and this is a Chrome extension that allows you to go to documents on your computer. This could be web pages, it could be PDFs, it doesn't matter. And what you do is you highlight the text, and then what Copyfish does is pull out the text in an OCR, optical character recognition. That's what OCR stands for. And then we're able to pull this text out to manipulate it. So basically what you end up with now is I have text that is inaccessible to me. I use the Copyfish extension to draw the text out, and then I can do something with it. I can copy and paste it into a Google Doc to read it. I can use a built-in screen reading program to read it, whatever it might be. So I'm able to get the text out of a document. So when we start looking at that, those become some of the issues we really need to address for our students. Is they have this electronic version of this paper, but what does that allow them to do with the text? And that goes back to that question I asked you before. What do you need to do with this document? What do the students need to have access to? If a student don't really need to worry about the text part. Maybe they're just marking it up, but the reading is not the struggle. Perhaps maybe paper documents and mark them up so that they can do a writing activity. The features they have and how those features line up, and that allows us to do that. The next group of items with devices, specifically the cameras of our type of OCR app, the optical, and create a digital representation of it. Now, as we see one, there is no way. There are tons. Was that enough emphasis? All have different levels of capability. The couple that I show you as a starting point, which is perfectly fine, or if you have a favorite, that's great. Share. With these OCR apps, my one suggestion to you is don't buy one right away. Most of these apps have a free version and a pay version. Usually the only difference in them is that thing. So it's kind of a limit. It's limited by the number of scans you can use. Typically, they will be full functioning apps, just not unlimited use. So with that said, try them. These apps have a very wide range of recognition engines that will convert the picture to text. So check these out as you go through them. Some So with that said, here's a couple that I've found to be really decent, and maybe you've had other experiences, so please share them. Again, these, when you are the only ones that still live on my phone. So I think if anything else will work, in fact, this one, this tiny scanner, and the next one I'm going to show you, I started out using the free version of them and then moved to the pair. Is basically what it says. It allows me to take a picture of print, save it as a digital document, and then share that. And if you notice on the picture on the right, you see all those different ways I can share it. And that was another reason I liked this one, and I kept using this one, is because it seemed to hit all the big online storage tools that people use. It has Dropbox integration. It connects directly to Evernote. It connects to your Google Drive. It allows me to share these files quickly with either myself or someone else, whatever it might be. So thinking about a way I can get something from paper to digital to a student quickly. This might be it. And again, and you've probably heard me say this in other webinars, I'm a big fan of tools that work across platform, any device I have, which is perfect. So that flexibility to be able to use this. Now, it doesn't do anything else except take a picture, save it as a PDF, share it with another document. That's it. So again, what do you need it to do? If I need to type on this document, I'm not going to be able to do that. If I need to have text to speech on this page that I just scanned, I can't do that. It doesn't do that. So know what you have, know what you need, and then figure that out as you go. And then you'll get a sense of how these apps might work for you. Now, as we keep moving kind of up the row here, as we start thinking about extra features or additional features or added functionality, we have a tool like SnapType. This is an example of SnapType Pro. This is one that allows you to take a picture of something and then add text directly on top of it. So now in this one, they have a picture of a worksheet. So there's a worksheet picture on the screen. The individual, just a text box pops open. Now I'm able to type directly on that sheet, and then I can export that out when I'm done. Again, a good support if that's what you need. It's not going to let me annotate to things like that, mark it up in any way. All it allows me to do is add text to speech component either. But if all my directly on a paper worksheet, so if handwrite's slow, it's illegible, whatever it might be on, I've moved on with my task. It solves, I say, effortlessly. It's easy. Take a picture, tap where you want to write. Again, what do you need it to do? What does it do? Making sure we understand those two things. Now, a lot of what we need for this board. So in that case, we need to look for that additional feature set in these tools. It may make them a little bit more expensive, but not always, which is a nice surprise that this doesn't to use for our students. So as we start thinking about how these work, I showed this in one of the other ones, in one of the other webinars, the Claro Scan Pen app, which allows you to take pictures of something and then it reads it out loud. I'll give you a sense of what that does. Here's the video for it.
New Jersey and New York finally grew tired of all this fighting and in 1769 petitioned King George to appoint a royal commission to define the boundary.
Okay, so a pretty quick example of this. So this idea, when we think about working with PDFs, working with print documents, we'll go back to this one and say, what do we need to do? If my student just simply needs to hear it read aloud, for comprehension and for understanding, and then they will move forward using the actual print copy that they have, well, then that app is perfect for them. So if you have a student, here's the scenario, who needs someone to help him read a quiz or test aloud, but then the student answers their own questions. So we have a student who gets a reading support for an accommodation, but then they go on and just complete the task with the writing piece. They could use this. They could take a picture of that document, scan through it, listen to it in a headset, listen to it as many times as they need to, listen to whatever parts of it they need to for understanding, and simply write their answer on the form and keep moving. So if we're looking for quick text, it's a good solution for this. That might work. Remember, if you remember what I had said about this app in the previous webinar, this does not save the pictures. This is all about taking a picture, listening to it, moving on. So there is no saving of documents. I'm not sharing electronic documents with anyone. This is really about just-in-time access to work. But if that's the function that your student needs, perfect. That's the app for them. That might work really well. Here's another one that, again, Another positive app, positive solution. This one's great because it's free. This is an Android app. It's called Text Fairy. The idea with this is you take a picture of a document, you draw a box around the text you want it to read aloud, then the app converts it. So the picture on the left is the app going through the conversion process. It's going to convert the text into English for me. And then on the right-hand side is the OCR'd, optical character recognition, the text in a screen. And if you'll notice in the top, it's kind of hard to tell, but the text is in the main part of the screen. Right above it to the left is a small picture of a speaker. If I click that speaker, so now I'm able to have text-to-speech support for documents I come across in print. This one has one added feature, or an added feature, versus it gives me an option to share this document out and make this picture a PDF. So this takes that same functionality that we had of being able to export this out as a PDF also. So again, as I start to think about what do I need, what are the functions I needed to do, what do I need to have support in order to complete my task, this gives that next level of support. And it's free. And so there you go. You can try it, see if it works. It does pretty well. I've tried it with a range of print on different types of documents, and it seems to handle them pretty well. This is one that I've noticed even a little bit more. The app seems to be very, I don't want to call it very finicky. It's a little finicky with the picture you take and the amount of light. So you have to really make sure you have a well-lit area when you take the picture, and you have to make sure you hold the device steady as it takes the picture. And so that, because I've noticed that some people I've used this with have had trouble with blurry pictures. And it's because they're really trying to take it on the go, and they're just not holding the device straight enough and steady enough to get a good picture. But once you get the good picture, it does a nice job of pulling out the text and being able to read it for you. So that might be a good option. We looked at this tool in one of the other webinars too, but now we start to see how these tools kind of cross over the areas that we're focusing on in this series of webinars. So this is VoiceDream app, which allows you to open up digital files. Now with this one, you already have to have the PDF available to you. So the PDF already has to be electronic, but what's great about VoiceDream Reader is it will read PDFs. So if you put a place, again, is that it keeps it in the same, it does not strip the text out. So what you have is the actual representation of the PDF on the screen. So as the columns, the way the text was laid out on the screen, the pictures that were embedded in there, all of those supports remain, and that's on the screen as well. So this is, again, another level of support when I have the document already in my device. So I already have it digitally available to me. So as we continue on, so each of these tools, I'm building a little bit up this path a little. And now what we have is Claro PDF. Now I showed you Claro Scan Pen, which was their tool to take a picture of documents and have them read aloud to you. Claro PDF is the full functioned version of a tool from Claro. So this is their full function tool in that I can use this to either open PDFs that I already have, or I can take a picture of something and save it as a PDF. Now, once I have it as a PDF, I can do any number of things with this document. I can write on it. I can annotate it with highlights. I can drop in notes to myself, which can be typed in to perform an additional task with it. And then export. This is taking all of the features we've seen in each of the apps that we've looked at and extensions. They've all done one or two, all of those functions, including the text-to-speech support. So including that ability to have things read aloud to you, which is huge. So when you think about a need that a student might have, if they have all of these needs, this might be something we look at for them as a solution. This is an iOS app, so this will work on your iPhones, your iPads. But this idea of being able to get any type of document, whether I have it already or I take a picture of it, and then perform all of those tasks I might need to do. So I could have a worksheet on my desk. I take a picture of it. I open it up in this app. I mark up the page. I add in my text for my answers. I export that out and share it with my start to finish with this app, as long as they've been trained on the process. I think that's really important to remember that we have to train them on how these things work. But that's an app that could do that. When we think about this idea, mind you, this idea of using some of the tools we've already looked at. And so if we're looking at Chrome extensions, we've already looked at Snap and Read Universal and ReadWrite for Google. But those two tools working with PDFs. So on the screen, in this screenshot here, you have a PDF open But on the right-hand side of that screen, I have Snap and Read open at the same time. Now I can use Kami to mark up the PDF and do whatever I need to do, but I can also use Snap and Read to read it aloud to me. So now I'm doing what they affectionately call app smashing. I'm smashing things together. I'm using functions and features of different tools simultaneously. That's called app smashing. So this idea of using one of these extensions that we've already seen to do that, whether it is Snap and Read or whether it's Read and Write for Google Chrome. For Google, TextHelp has recently updated their PDF tool, and it is very, very nice. Here, I'll open it up so you get a sense of what that looks like. And you'll see how it can perform another layer of support for your students. So let me open up this PDF. Sorry, I should have had this one open too. I had the other one open, and I should have opened that one. I'll close some of the other ones so it's not all bogged down. All right, so again, it was a PDF that lived in my Google Drive. I told it I want you to open this with Read and Write for Google. And so now what you're going to see is the new version of their PDF reader. So if you are a user of Read and Write for Google, you might not have this functionality yet because this was recently introduced. You might have to go in and reinitiate a PDF, and then the program will prompt you and ask you to download the new extension. And so you might have to do that. So here's what the new extension looks like. And now I have this PDF that's open in the center of the screen. Pretty standard. Not much different than any other PDF, but now I can highlight text, have it read to me.
Passion 1, the child. You became a teacher primarily because you wanted to make a difference in the life of a child.
Okay, so now you have that ability to read your PDFs. I can add in text if I want to. So there's the ability to add in text. You'll notice some of these other levels of support here.
This is text.
So I have the ability to hear it spoken aloud. I have word prediction support.
And
I was trying
graphics.
To so there's your ability to add text to speech. I text to speech. I have word prediction. I can do dictation into here. I have the ability to adjust the visual representation of this text as I put it in there. I can move it around the page. When I hit the little check mark, now it sticks in there. So now I have that functionality too. Do I need to add highlighting in as I read things? Maybe I do. Okay, so I can go through and highlight different pieces, just like I can in Read and Write for Google. When I'm looking at it with Google Docs and websites, I can go through, highlight information, and then just as I can do in that other version or in those other workspaces using Read and Write for Google, I can export those highlights out into a Google Doc to start working. So I have that ability as well. So all of these functionality, all these different functionalities built in here, let me navigate through a PDF and do pretty much everything I might need. I have also a dictionary built in. I haven't tried this, so I didn't know. That seemed like a good word that I'd get. So the word was night, and I have the picture dictionary, which shows me a picture of night. I can have the regular print dictionary, which gives me the definition, which I can have read aloud. So all of these functions are things I can do on a PDF. If I get to a piece that is not accessible to print, so this is an image, so it may not be able to be read to me, but I still have the ability to use the screenshot reader to make a box around something and then have it read.
National School Reform Faculty.
Okay, so there you go. So you have that ability as well. So those functions are really very well thought out and provide a nice level of support for our student as they move forward. And like anything else, if I make all these marks on this PDF, so I've added in my text, I highlight things. I can download this document or print this out. So if I need to share this back with someone else, I can do that. All of those things working right in my Chrome environment. So if I'm on a Chromebook or in the Chrome browser on any computer, I have that functionality there that allows me to navigate and interact with PDFs at a high level with a range of supports. So that's just kind of a quick run through of the new PDF reader tool from TextHelp. But a really nice addition to a tool which is already very powerful for our students. And now we have this kind of next level of support for it. One other tool that TextHelp has that I just want to make sure we mention here, it fits in nicely with our conversation piece of what we're talking about in this realm, this idea of taking print and creating an accessible electronic document from it. And so there is an add-on that's called Snapverter, which allows you to take pictures of documents, upload them into your Google Drive, and then it performs the conversion, which allows you to have the PDF reader navigate through that document for you. So this idea of taking something that is print, creating an accessible version of that document, and giving me all of the supports that you just saw in that previous demo when I showed you. The ability to have it read aloud, I can add text to a page, I can highlight a page, I can do any number of those pieces to a document that started its life right in front of me as a print piece of paper, that now I can have it made accessible for someone. So a really nice add-on as you go through if you're working in the Chrome environment. All right, we have time for one more. We'll throw one more thing out there, then we'll wrap ourselves up for this webinar. And it is my old friend Google Keep, which I am, of course, a huge fan of now, and I keep telling everybody who will listen, and even anybody who doesn't listen, this idea of an organization tool that allows us to give ourselves notes, reminders, and any other type of support I might need. So we mentioned it in the executive functioning webinar. We also talked about it in the reading webinar. But I want to highlight this one function, people. So with this one, in Google Keep, which is also a website, an app for tools that lives everywhere. But one of its functions is the ability to take a picture of it. About how it does that is once you take a picture, strip out the text, it will do the OC. So now what I have is the ability to take a picture of a page from a book. It will show up in the note. And now that picture on the screen on the bottom right was from my iPad. So I used the built-in text-to-speech of my iPad, and I held down my finger and highlighted text, and now it will speak that text aloud to me. So suddenly I went from something that was something that I quickly have support for text-to-speech, and if I use this tool as a note-taking tool or a writing organizational tool, I now have these notes right in my Google Keep that I can share with myself through other means. I can open this up in Google Docs and then write from it. So this idea of using the tools we already have and using the functionality that's built into them in order to successfully navigate through the hurdle that might be a print document placed in front of me. So I hope that that one was, I hope that that one is a helpful one for you. I hope that some of the other ones will be helpful for you. I want you to try them. Take a chance. Try them with your students. See what works, see what doesn't work. About your successes. I want to know what's working, what's not. Was it a must-have? Pop it in that Google Doc. Share that information with everyone else. Let's learn from each other as we go through this so that we're working with. So again, as with all the other webinars, I appreciate your time. I hope you found this valuable as we went through and looked at navigating through PDFs. Remember, this one is just one of a series of 10. So hopefully the other topics are of interest to you. You have the Google site address there that you can go back to check in at any point and see what the other topics have in store for you. And that's at sites.google.com/view/NHATI webinars. All 10 of them are listed there. Each of those webinars has a Google Doc. Go through, add in comments, post ideas. If you post something and you don't see a response right away, don't get discouraged, People are viewing these webinars at different times, in a different order. So you might not see a response right away, but don't worry. People are out there. So don't worry about people not responding to what you're writing in there. Put it up there anyway. Things will start to trickle in. We'll start to have conversations as we go through. And remember, if you want to have real-time conversation about this, we will have a in-person AT tool-time chat on Thursday, February 18th of 2018 at 3 p.m. Put it in your calendar. I'll see you then, and we'll sit down. We'll have conversation about this. Bring your ideas, bring your questions, bring your solutions. You know what? If you want to talk more than me, that's even better. I'm all for it. But bring your ideas, bring your solutions that you've done with your students and see how we've been successful. That's an opportunity for us to continue this building of a network of sharing. With that said, imagine that. It's almost like I knew what was coming. If you want to continue to build your network, which you do, by the way, you need to connect with other like-minded professionals who do what you do. We can't have all the answers now, but what we can have is a group of people that have other answers. And if you're on Twitter, and if you're not on Twitter, this is a good reason to get on Twitter, join us every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern to talk about assistive technology. We have the AT chat around the country and around the world who are interested in assistive technology supports education. So you can connect with a group of other people who have experiences, who've tried these things, who maybe have be better at what you do. So please make sure that you join us. On our Google site, I added in a page for the AT chat. And if you don't feel comfortable joining us live for an AT chat, that's fine. Hopefully you'll change your mind at some point, but that's okay. If not, I've added in the sheet on our Google site that takes you to the archived chat log from every AT chat from this school year. Scroll through the conversation. So you'll be able to participate after the chat, but at least you'll get to see the resources. You won't be able to talk to us in real time, but at least you'll get the knowledge that was shared in the chat, which is just as valuable. That, and then maybe we'll see you live one of these days during the chat. With that, there's my contact information. If you need anything, feel free. You want to have a conversation, you want to ask a question, you're stuck, my website, my email, my Twitter handle. However you want to get me, get me. There I am. I'm happy to chat. I'm happy to talk about anything. Doesn't have to be just about this topic. It can be about any of our topics. So please feel free. If I don't know the answer, I will reach out to my network and ask the question and get you an answer. So please don't feel like you should be, I don't want you to be sitting there kind of spinning your wheels, not sure how to move forward with something. So hopefully you'll use that. Hopefully you'll reach out and we can start the conversation. So again, thanks for joining me for this webinar. I appreciate it. I hope you're finding value in these webinars, and I look forward to talking to you in one of the future webinars. So thanks very much, and have yourself a good rest of the day. Thanks. Bye.